Hello everybody, how you doing? It's a pretty emotional day today. Let me see that I'm live. Hello. How everybody feeling? Yeah, it's a very, very emotional day today. I mean, for I feel like I want to make it a very optimistic stream because I want to touch on some things that I had experienced. I think I'm a bit too loud. Let me fix it up. That I had experienced throughout my life. Let me know if the sound is okay. Um, so I'm gonna lower the volume a little bit. I'm gonna talk about a couple of things that I experienced throughout my life. And the thing is that for recently, I don't know what happened in the several, maybe since it's been a year and people started digesting what had happened. I've, wait, I'm trying to see, can you hear me all? Because I'm not seeing like the, the, the chat that the chat is updated. Right, should I know? By the way, eclectic vibes, welcome to the club. All right. Can you guys hear me? Sound okay? Okay, sound okay. Okay, so now I know I'm live. All right. Okay. Okay. I was trying to understand like why is there such a delay, but I guess people have so much to say. So here's the thing. I actually made a playlist with interviews and I want to show parts of it. The parts that where I felt like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. It's happening. And that is that I had so many experiences during my lifetime where I gave up. I gave up. I thought nobody would ever understand the Jews. I've actually made a video about it, like the nice guy, where I brought Priest Morgan, and I showed the reaction he had when what's her name? She's like a comedian, Sarah Silverman, tried to share with him her experience with anti-Semitism. Like the way he was rolling his eyes and it's like the clear reaction of you're imagining, like gaslighting her with no shame, like on air. And that was the consensus. So much so that I've never seen anything else. Which what makes me emotional because I'm seeing something else, like for the first time ever. It took a year. It didn't happen right away. It didn't happen on October 7th. But now, yeah, people starting to understand, you know? It's like first time for like it was the first time that I'm seeing that we're not being gaslit. Like that people are like, I thought we were crazy all of my life, but now I get it. You know? It was like, now I understand. And it also took a whole year because it's just now there's one short clip that Konstantin Kisin from Trigonometry had shared today, like 7 minutes ago. Or I mean, it was 7 minutes when I watched it. So today, and he was like, I'm not on the fence anymore, where he shared this story, right? And this is how long it takes. It's like you see that if you are not, you have to be not lazy. You have to understand the West and Western anti-Semitism and Christian anti-Semitism and Zionism and Judaism and Islam and jihadism and the Western structures and the media and the universities. And people, because of October 7th, because of the shock, because of how much it disrupted the world, people started doing that research. They started actually doing that research. And a year later, because I'm telling you, I don't know, let me watch. Like, when was it published? This was okay. One was a day ago. I mean, you're not gonna. Okay, I'll just go through quickly. I'll just tell you that. You know what? Maybe I should share like the. I'll share it. I'll just mute it. Let me see. Where am I now? Wait. One second. I'll fix up. I'm gonna appear. I make myself appear. Here I am. Ta-da. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna mute everything. Okay. Sorry for the weirdness, you guys. I don't like showing my too much. Okay. So I just those are the videos. I mean, Time of War. I mean, Douglas Moore is a special person. Like, he gets it. But I never watched the moment where I saw the person go from, you know, somebody who unconsciously believes in all those anti-Semitic tropes, whether they know it or not, to I get it now. Like, so those are the cases. So here, these two, I saw their reaction and I was like, and I watched them closely, like I watched them. And the interview, trigonometry, whatever, how you say it. They've been doing a lot of interviews. I watched them many times, right? And that was the first interview that was published yesterday, where I saw that expression where it's like, it clicked. It clicked. It's there. A year later, these two that made all that research and trying to understand and finally like get it, it clicked. Like, and it took a year because I was watching them the whole time and I could see they don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get it. And in this video, I was like, they finally got it. Like, you guys saying I look pale. I need to get more at the sun, and I'm actually wearing absolutely no makeup because I was lazy. So that's why I look pale. I actually might have like the worst kind of makeup that is like under like black under eyes, but not because they're black, but just because I have residues that, you know, are now panda eyes because I didn't clean it properly. I'm actually, you guys don't know, I don't know if you noticed, but it kind of disappeared. I'm working hard on making really like investing a lot of time. Like, I'm editing 24/7 to make very good content for you all. So if you guys want to support me, buy me coffee, Patreon, anywhere like here, that really, really helps, especially in times like that when I really want to like invest more in the content I'm making. But that means that I'm offline, which means like it helps my, you know, my income. But at the same time, I already, like, you know, I'm working, you know, I'm working hard for you. So here's and another thing I wanted to mention is I've made every live stream, I've made every video and live stream that I've made talking about almost all of them, like almost 100% of them. And I have also like asked for them to get reviewed. And a lot of times after YouTube reviews my content, they approve it. Like, they all got demonetized. Everything that where I talk about anti-Semitism, even though I'm like, actually the nice guy video where I think it was monetized, but like where I talk about my personal experience, like really, I don't know why it always gets demonetized. So I So I got this experience. Like, I was told as a child that I should be dead, right? By a random German teacher that I met on a plane. The night, like, for example, I landed in Lyon, um, as I met my friend who is Japanese, by the way. He lives in France, but he's Japanese. And we were walking together, and some guys came and asked for a lighter. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't speak French. And as we walked away, they spit on the ground, and they said, like, they called me a dirty Jew or something like that, which I didn't understand because I don't speak French. But my Japanese friend who lives in France obviously speaks French. He was like, by the way, like, they just cursed you for being a dirty Jew. And I was like, how did they even know, right? Like, we just walked down the street. I was walking with a Japanese friend in France, and all I said is like, I don't speak French. But I guess they know. Anyway, those are like, and a lot of experiences like that. Like, it's like from Heil Hitler to whatever, like, at the amount of times, like, at some point, I stopped remembering them. I just remembered the ones that were the most shocking to me, and not like oh, you're a Jew, but you look fine comments, right? Those are, I don't like, I didn't even register them. I think the one with the German, even, when I was a child, I heard it a lot, but like the one with the teacher, I remember well because she was a teacher. Like, it shocked me that a teacher, somebody who actively works in education, right, in the education system, would tell a child that Hitler, like, he was right, right? So, um, uh, and that shocked me. It just, like, I remember that specifically because she was a teacher, a German, like, teacher. Because when you get it from, like, random, I didn't even register it, because you hear it a lot all the time, and not and the people are like, yeah, people are online are cruel. And I was like, what are you saying? I'm privileged person. I'm an ex. Okay, so you guys, the reason I can do some of like the things I'm doing is that I have the craziest combination of things, that some of them are luck, some of them are skills, like, being in the intelligence, doing, like, serving in the intelligence is not something that a lot of people can say. But I also was a refugee, and, like, we came to Israel with nothing but our clothes. So I experienced that feeling of having nothing. And then my family managed to reestablish themselves. And then I also had the experience of being privileged and traveling the world. And I've been to many countries. I've met people from all over the world. And I've traveled alone for a year in South America. I traveled alone in Europe. I was in China. I was in, Thailand. I had summer camps in the United States. Like, I speak Russian, and I grew up, like, I heard the stories of what communism and the Soviet Union was really like, which I realize is a lot of information that Western people just don't have access to. Like, they fundamentally don't understand the dictatorship and scaring people and things like that. Like, they really don't. And because, like, I have that experience, I I've I've come to learn a lot of things, to say the least, right? So this is why I feel like a lot of why I can give the analysis I give and things like that, and is because I've met people from all over the world, Iran, Egypt, like, I saw it. And let me tell you, like, I don't even register the amount of times that, people are like, befriended me, and then turned out to be rabid anti-Semites telling me to die and that my family should that they hope my family gets killed. Like people that I've been friends with, that I traveled with. Like, something happens or something, or you talk to them for, here's my favorite when it happens, when you start talking to them and you start asking questions and stuff and they flip. They flip on you real time. I don't even register that because of how many times that happened to me. Just used to it. But every time I try to tell it to people, listen, you don't understand what it's like. I had the Sarah Silverman experience, right? Because also, like, people meet me like you don't know anything about me. I might be privileged now, but like, do you know anything about me? Like nothing, right? Like nothing. It's like nothing was from my experience or like my family's experience or anything. They just assume, right? So like, okay, so because so I'm privileged now, so it's obviously I was always, and I feel like okay, so I don't know, and like and the amount of times they're like, oh, you're like a cute girl, then you must be stupid. Anyway, but here's the so I thought, okay, so fine. I bet somewhere, somebody understands. So I've been watching these interviews, and I realized nobody does. And for the first time in my life, and when I say, and I gave all that introduction to say that I have a lot of experience. For the first time in my life, I saw people clicking, the click, the I get it, right? So yes, there are people like Douglas Murray, for example, who get it, like genuinely get it. I feel like, right? So like they get it, but because to me, he always got it. I've never seen the click moment, right? I've never seen. And even people like, let's say, Jordan Peterson and things like that, like I'm not sure they get it because they're not like he's not Douglas Murray, to say the least. He's not, and it's unclear. But I don't know. So let me go through. I want to go just like see. So one day, this published yesterday, and I see this and it's like and like that got me so emotional because I saw with my own eyes that we there is no like there is a point where I can see people who don't gaslight anymore, who go from X to Y, from not understanding to understanding, and that's insane. Like that's insane. Um, let me. I wanna wait. Let me read. Somebody. What? Okay. I can't understand how people can hate you after knowing you just because you're Jewish. I'll tell you more than that, right? It's it's like you can I lived with people. Like like we shared laughs, we shared meals. Like there was a love and affection and they said how much they appreciate me and everything like that. Just like, but then on October 7th, right away, or like, you know, it's like, oh, you're a Jew, you should die. It was like I was living with you in the same house. And also like not only that, like I can say like some of my Muslim Arab friends, like, which right now is like, you know what? I think I know the truth. I know they're friends with me. I know we've been friends for years, 10 years, 20 years, right? Like they want to see like what would be the quote I once asked, you know? Wouldn't it be sad if a, a, a group that existed for thousands of years, that has accumulated so much knowledge, that is the basis of Western thought and like a lot of things that we know today, wouldn't it be sad that if they disappeared? I was like, in my mind, it was like it would be sad, just like having the you know you have the what it's called, like in Athens, you have the Heraclean, like the temple. Like how tragic that would be if that disappeared. But sometimes like there are historic relics that should like that are alive, right? So Yazidis, like how sad it would be that like an ancient, like our Zoroastrians, like if Zoroastrians would disappear, but somebody like the Jews who influenced the world so much, like wouldn't it be like sad? It's like a tragedy for like this is like a monument, a living monument in the history of humankind. And he looked at me, he's like, nope. And yeah, and those like people like you can be friends for years or anything like that. Let me go. So and that so I cannot like when I made like I make an optimistic stream, and I called it like this is an optimistic take, because of watching those videos that I promise I'm gonna go through and say when they were published. But like literally like I can like it feels like a miracle. It feels like a miracle. Right here, same with Winston Marshall. Like he has a moment here somewhere, which I want to bring up, where she asks him like something about like, wouldn't be you feel like, don't you feel like you would feel differently if it wasn't Jews? And his face changed in a way that made me feel like he understood he's an anti-Semite, right? He was infected by anti-Semitic thinking. And that's 2 days ago. This video should have so much more views. How it's like, oh, like 25K. What the heck? Like, this is an amazing video. That is not okay that this is the view count. Okay, that's another video. Yeah, basically. Anyway, that's it, I guess. Like the other ones are a bit different. But okay, so 2 days ago and yesterday, and those when I watched that was like I saved it, and I called it a mask drop. I don't know, like it's like optimistic. Like I cannot believe it. It's like, you know, like people see themselves, like they saw themselves. Let me go through. I'm gonna go through the chat. Shauna, thank you so much. We can hear you, beautiful Rebecca. Shauna Thompson. The IDF killed the people who were holding Yazidi woman captive for 10 years. Because of that, she had the courage to escape. Her story was released today. God bless Israel. Yeah, it's an incredible story. Like, insane. It's the thing is like fighting Hamas, like I don't get it. Like that's the moral thing to do. That is the moral thing to do. Somebody says, this is what, okay, I want to comment. I'm gonna jump. Because I know Israelis and Jews feel like that, and they're stupid. Okay, Mariana Porta, it says Winston Marshall is not an anti-Semite at all. He's half Jewish and he's with us 100%. You're wrong. You're wrong. This is how I like, this is what I want to fight in the Jewish community and Israeli community. We are so used to anti-Semitism. It has to, like, our standards to thinking that somebody is not anti-Semitic are extremely low. Extremely. And I can prove it, and I'll prove it because I'm gonna find the section that I'm talking about in the video, where I'll show that he was an anti-Semite. He was, and he realized that he was. And the thing is, yes, he is, not an anti-Semite. The only thing is, like, he's not an anti-Semite is like, he is the kind of person that doesn't want to be an anti-Semite. He just doesn't understand he is. And the moment he got it that he is an anti-Semite, he can drop it. So yeah, I'm gonna go through it. CJJ, thank you so much for your super chat. Moralic Tribes, I just finished watching this interview video too. Yeah, those are good interviews. Thank you for your support. Chat for Rebecca 2024 XY. Thank you so much, XY Fast Track. Shauna, the universities are the real problem. Ayn Rand, based Jewish woman. Yeah. It's actually, did you guys watch the video on anti-Semitism I made, which obviously got demonetized? I think, okay, originally, yeah, I start with universities, like it's intellectual hate. It's the anti-Semitism in Islam and in Christianity were inserted there on purpose. In Islam, it's by Muhammad. He did it very unsophisticatedly because he was an idiot, like he was low IQ person. But then the Christians, the Romans did it on purpose, like they calculated it so. Like they perpetuated because they wanted to. They have several reasons to do so. You can watch my videos on anti-Semitism. But the Romans and like the anti-Semitism in Christianity was inserted in a more artificially sophisticated way. For the basic reason, the elites and the intellectuals hate Judaism. But it's only intellectuals and elites that believe in hierarchy and power structures. And because Judaism is against those concepts, they have figured out a very sophisticated way to get rid of the problem that is called Judaism, that is called get rid of the Jews. Get rid of the Jews, and then you can install an hierarchical power-based society more easily. Like literally, that's the thing. Like that, I'm giving you the bottom line. Trust me, bro, kind of situation. Okay, you can go watch videos. You can but this is the bottom line. So it in Islam it's like, okay, so this is just a bitter person, but in Christianity it was inserted, and everywhere that that hate is intellectually fueled. The universities are the real problem. Like, yeah, they do it on purpose. They do it 100% on purpose. Charlie Lemon, Shana Tova. Yes, Shana Tova, everybody. Oh my God. Shana Tova, Happy New Year, everyone. A better year ahead. Amen. May those masks continue dropping, and people won't be on the fence anymore of what's true and what's not. Crusader General, it won't be a tragedy if Mosul becomes museum relics, and it will happen. Yes. But there is but still I don't believe that the Quran should be erased from history. On the contrary, there are things that I believe. Okay, so there is a geopolitical analysis that is a live conversation that was by Israeli analysts that was released yesterday for like a year of October 7th. And I want to talk about it because that video made me feel like, you know what? We need to study the Quran. We need to, as a cautionary tale, and as well as understanding that Islam and Nazism, and that's part, like that's a human, that's a brain. Okay, it's like people are gonna be like that because this is how their brain works. That's why you have so independently the same things rise over and over again. Cannot drink. Mm. And I think with Jordan Peterson, like he believes this is envy. It's based on envy and like that Jews are more successful and this is why people are the way they are with Jews. But I don't think it's true. No offense. I don't think that's the real issue. I think the real issue is it's like when AP came to Israel and he was here, is like, oh my God, everything here is so chaotic. Like everything here is so unstructured. Like there is no hierarchy. There is no like, that's the problem. That's the real problem. Not intellectuality, not envy. It's people that dislike this like, and a lot of people opposed to it, like leftists, that's their personality type. Like to them, they appreciate power. Like I get to, even in like Jews in Israel, right? It's I got to talk to them and it's like, okay, if somebody comes out and tells them that's what's gonna be done and that's it, they'd be like, yes sir. Like this is what they appreciate. This is and I got like people like leftists here, like I asked like let's review your opinions. I was like, what if that happens? They're like, you know what, yes. Like it's a militaristic, like they need this structure, this you tell me what to do, we do it, like, right? Because like I don't know, it's just the way they are, it's different. So it's part of that. So some people who are more hierarchy, structurally based, their brain gets it better. Like they struggle with chaos. I was like when AP came here, I was like, oh my God, everything's so chaotic. I love it. Like things work and things happen, even though there is no hierarchy. Like I don't know how it works, but like that's amazing. And some people would come and would absolutely hate it, that kind of way. And just and because and that is and that is it, like, that's what it is. So, but this is something that's important to understand. Like some people want hierarchy and some people push more towards it and like power and things like that, and others want it to be more free. And this is where we are, like, in the spectrum. That's where the pull and push come. So I'm gonna talk like an others, like that's also like a thing to learn from 100%. Should Muslim exist? Islam exist? People should no, but I don't believe blind faith should exist at all. So I don't believe that the Hasidic version of Judaism should exist. I don't believe that the Jesus is God, like, and the Trinity is true, and people who actually spend hours trying to understand whether the Trinity is like a triangle that looks like that or is it an upside down triangle. Like people who spend hours doing that, I don't think that should exist. I think it should be like cool, but it should not be encouraged. So when it comes to Islam and Muslims, the problem for me is that faith in Muhammad and like that blind faith should not exist. Okay. And also like it can go back to what it really is, which is like it's Islam is just Arabism. That's what it is. Like everywhere they go, they force people to learn Arabic. They conquer the land and settle there, affecting the local DNA. And there is a thing that's called Arab culture. Do I think Arab culture should disappear from the world? No, actually. KL, I'm a refugee who survived Marxism and stared down racism, but I cannot understand the depth of darkness you have experienced. Yeah, it's a different thing, I guess. I don't know. Where is my computer? Okay. Shauna, with Christianity, it also seems like it took time to evolve. Anyone who protected or helped Jews were often also killed by the church or state. Yes. So that's the funny thing. The Inquisition, the Romans, the Orthodox Christianity, they always killed Jews with Christians. So the Jews were the poster child, and the Christians were the yes, we have to get rid of them too. And when I say Christians, it's like Christians who don't know, who didn't fit to the stream they belong to, or like they weren't Catholics enough, or the wrong kind of Catholics. It's oh shit, there is an alarm. I have to go. Maybe I should take you with me. Yeah, I'm gonna go take you with me. Or hey, sorry guys, having alarms. Let me show myself to you. Mm, Yeah. Yeah, those are explosions. I don't know if you can hear them. I'm sorry for the sound. I couldn't bring my mic with me, so I'm just with my headphones. Um, hey, I can really hear it, which is crazy. Can you guys hear it? Okay, you guys can hear me. Good. Wait, no. Um, I'm gonna show myself. Okay. Uh, why don't you see? Mm, all right. You can hear me, okay. Yeah, you guys can hear it. Da, da, da. Sorry. All right, now you can see me too. So I don't know what's happening. Yeah, guys, hit like. See, I ran with my computer just to stay live. I'm in a safe room. Okay, okay, let me see what's going on. Who is attacking us? And like at 5 p.m. we had a missile from Yemen. Well, who is it now? Who is having fun? You sure? Yeah, Shadani? Okay. think we have to stay like 10 minutes. But people here. Nice saying, nice saying. One sec. We had Tal back and forth with the bomb shelter last Tuesday. Over 500 people in live stream. Moscow. I saw and heard 5 interceptions. Girl, why are you watching them? Are you not supposed to be, or was it far? Was the alarm away? All right, I think I'm gonna go back up. I mean, I'm supposed to stay here for 10 minutes, but you know, you guys, some people left the live stream while I was running. Oh no. Why is Macron so worried about Lebanon? What's the issue? He's probably got some assets there. That's what he's. I have no idea. I think it's some sort of corruption, to be honest. Or because he's now, because of the rise of the right in France, he has to cooperate with like the communists and the Islamists and things like that. All right, I'm gonna go up again. So I'm gonna turn off the video. But here you can hear me, I guess. And then this is how we're gonna have fun, y'all. Run, Forrest, run. Guys, have fun. Oh, it's funny that it like I realize now, like it got stuck on this image, even though it's not connected to the screen anymore. Which kind of scares me. Ah, it was missiles from Lebanon. All right, people are saying it's Lebanon. This time. You see, we have so many friends. Like, we don't know who's gonna send us like parcels, you know? That was a surprise. Who is it gonna be? Is it Yemen? Is it Iran? Is it Lebanon? Who is it? Is it Gaza? Even though they're kind of out of ammunition already, even though they actually sent some today. I think Gaza managed to send some today, which is impressive. But yeah, this is how much they have a year later. People, no, Rebecca, 10 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay. It just happened. Yeah. Where am I? Can you see me? Is me. I'm back in the room. Well, it's not my fault. I know I'm supposed to be there for 10 minutes, but I have like, it's not my fault, really. It's like, I mean, it is my fault. Actually, it's my one regret. Like, I should have. Maybe I should prepare my other mics just in case I have to run again. Okay, let me go through. Islam is way more anti-Semitic than Nazism. Yes. The Nazis, at least, like, I don't know. Is it more anti-Semitic? It's just like 1% more anti-Semitic, something like that. Like, it's a very small difference. Where is this thing that churches? I'm sorry. Yeah. I have to run. Okay. There you go. I need to feed my computer. I actually need to feed those as well. But I also have like the old technology somewhere, you know, like a wire. because those are, they don't have enough internet. They don't have enough battery. It's actually prototype of jihad. Yeah, what is G8? Jihad. Yet the world prostrates it. Yeah, like Islam. That's the OG, you know. That's the OG. It's true. Nazism is a mere shadow of the greatness of Islam. Yeah, basically that's true. They are relic traps. Actually, Muhammad declared the Jews as enemies for not recognizing him as a prophet. He said the same thing about Christians for the same reason. Yeah, obviously. But that's the Jewish thing, right? Like other people will like have a brain. It's like people will be like, you know, just we're seeing now, like Mr. Pierce Morgan, like talking to Islamists instead of telling them, hey, we need to execute you. They're like, oh, interesting, tell me more. Jews and Christians were like, you are an idiot and the king is like, you know, who are you? I mean, they should have. Now if the Jews were proper Jews, they would have gotten rid of it. Like you'd throw into an asylum or like something, but whatever. Like, I don't know. Shauna, I'm glad you are still safe. I saw that Iranians, the people, wanted Israel to bomb Iran. Some do. I guess a lot do. After my talk with Armin Navabi, the talk with him convinced me that it's gonna be like the Ayatollahs are smart, right? It's gonna be very hard to get rid of a power-based structure society in Iran without outside intervention. Let's see, did I go through everything? Okay, okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you all. All right, let's go back to our planned schedule. What was I watching videos? Kind of want to see what's going on. Let me read the news for a sec, because, you know, getting bombed, having a live, entertaining you all. Maybe this is why a lot of people left. They're like, boring. We don't want to see a screen while I'm running. You guys. I'm gonna, it's what is like, ignore it. Like this is like, it's a sense of humor. I don't really feel angry at all. Or like, I feel like I should say that. Sometimes I make like jokes like that. Like, oh, you guys are having fun without me talking in the chat. I don't know, like maybe I should just like drink tea here and be silent because you guys are entertaining each other when I talk and like people are like talking to each other. And I was like, but nobody's saying anything about the things I'm saying, you know? So, but I don't really feel that. Like, I don't feel insulted. I just sometimes like, I'm happy to see you guys are happy. But at the same time, I was like, I genuinely feel like maybe I should like open a live and like drink tea. But I guess if there is no screen or anything, then people leave anyway, even though you'll have fun talking to each other. So I guess I still have to work. That's what my conclusion is. You know, that's my conclusion. It's not like you guys are talking, like, but I have to accept it. But at the same time, keep entertaining you all, because otherwise people just, I don't know. You guys are having fun, yeah? Huh? Let's see. Okay, were you saying something? Yeah, exactly. You see, that's what I'm talking about. Take it as we are happy just to be with you. Oh, yeah, I will. Okay, I would say I started talking again. Did I read the actual news? Nope. I just opened it, made a declaration about me taking a moment to read the news, and then read zero news. Right, so yeah, it says it is from Lebanon to the center. IDF is attacking the embassy of the United States in the UN. We have to insist on a ceasefire. We have to insist on a ceasefire because clearly right now Israel is able to attack. So you guys should have that fight again when Iran has nukes and so many missiles that your systems and Iron Dome and systems will get overwhelmed, and then we'll finally get rid of the dirty Jews like we wanted to always. Now let's watch people who finally realize what's going on, which is such an exciting moment. And I also have this amazing this video where they go by the Quran and the person there shows like why Hamas attacked the time how they like when they attacked, what are the signs Muslims are looking for. And he also said something very interesting. He said that like they did exactly the same thing with the Crusaders. So when the Crusaders showed the signs that the Israeli society showed that are written in the Quran, right? This is they go by the Quran and like this is when it's time to attack. So they were looking and was like, okay, all those signs are there. Now we're gonna attack. So it worked with the Crusaders, and I think like maybe, I don't know, could it have worked with Israel if they had waited for the lunatics from the left to completely take over and burn the country as they do? Like it's their way or no way. It's amazing. And the thing is like they get paid by Germany, by the United States. Like there is so much money running into it. And they do it on purpose, right? So you have so many idiots getting paid. And I was like, and then you see that it doesn't matter, like their family members get, this is the exact, but they don't understand because they're stupid. It's so easy. It's the same with Yair Lapid. Yair Lapid is like a shoe. He has an IQ of 80, maybe, if I'm generous. It's like, he doesn't get anything. It's like, they can get like, okay, A to B, and then B to C. They understand A to C, but that's it. Like if the tree is like, if the logic chain is longer, if you have more facts, right? If it's not just like you have to do simultaneously, like hold in your brain that A leads to B and B leads to C, but also that D leads to A. That's it. They lose it because it's too much. Quran says to reference back to Torah if unsure. So it's the radical Islam. I don't know what you're smoking, person. Like, see, this is a person that cannot understand logic. Like he has one fact at a time. If you had two facts at a time, you'd know that, there is progression. There is like context. There is things like that. But no, a person that writes a comment like that, I'm sorry, Jay. I don't know who you are, but thank you for being an example of a person that can only hold one or two facts in their head. And that's it. That's where they're stuck. So people like Jay are very easy to take advantage of. Like really easy. Like, because it's like, this is the people they're paying. Like, they only do that because they're young and they know nothing or whatever, or because and they pay them, and then that's it. Or there are also like people who are just evil actors, right? To them, like I always imagine Ehud Barak to be. Ehud Barak was a prime minister that got kicked out, and I met him in real life. Like my impression of him right away was like he's a psychopath. I think that the moment the Israeli society decided to get him out, like he would be the person. Like he was like, oh, he's Muhammad, right? Like, you don't accept me? Okay, it's your head then, right? And Muhammad, that's the same mentality. It's like, okay, you didn't accept me, so I'm gonna kill all of you. So you have people like that too, right? So thank you, Jay, for demonstrating the point that I was trying to make. I really like it when you guys help me like that. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry, Jay. I just want you to know, like, this is like a problem that you have. And now that you're aware of the problem you're suffering from, I say that a person like you should stay on the fence. Stay on the fence. That's the smart thing to do. And when I want to say, like, you can say things like that, like you can ask questions. So here's the thing. If you want to, for example, bring a fact like that, pose it as a question, but not as a statement. Statements are not for you. Okay, good. Just for the betterment of society. I like to thank thank you for. But I'm serious. Here's the thing: is like I understand, but when you say something like this, is the thing: is like pose a question. It's important. It's the same thing when I like why I think like when Destiny came here, this was the classical case of a person like that. He can understand like a list of facts. But when you are out of your realm, or if you meet the actual people that it involves, ask questions. That would get you way farther. And after you collect the data, you have to switch your mind and think, what if there is no God? Then how do I understand it? What if, for example, do you know what I did when it comes to the Bible? I've decided, what if I read it in a way where I think none of the writers believed in God, like zero of them? You'd be amazed how differently and how mind-opening that would be. What if the writers, I'm sorry, what if all the writers, 100% of them, none of them believed in God? They all use, like you say, God, I trust God and things like that. God is a metaphor. They don't believe in God. It just say like, be confident, right? Like that's the approach. Like, and now read it. And what do you think now? Same. Like, how would you read the Quran if you understand that Muhammad was a human and it's arranged randomly? And if you bring, so one day he woke up and he was happy, so he was saying one thing, and the other day, and the next day he said another thing, and because he was moody and he was like, I hate you, like kids who tell their parents, like, I hate you, I want this candy and you're not gonna buy it for me, so I hate you, I wish you were dead, and like they run off. And the conclusion that you would make is that the kid hates their parents. Is that the conclusion? Like, really? So if you assume that the Quran was written by somebody who was emotional, like, not necessarily, it could be a lot of things, right? If it was, what if some, like, and the Quran acknowledges, right? Some verses are from this, if you're a believer or whatever. Some verses are from, and he got it when he was epileptic or something, all those verses. Like some were, but the Quran also says like that some of the verses were from Satan and some from angels. So, okay, so how do you know, like, it's like the understanding, the reading is different. So without understanding the mentality, the people, what kind of way, right? Are they just an emotional child, or are they really a bitter adult? Like, what's like our or those who read the Quran, where do they come from, right? So there is a concept of taqiyya. So it makes sense that you in a front of Ask the Jews is part of the taqiyya, because they implement those same tactics today. It also could be that Muhammad was consistent the whole time. He hated Jews and Christians the whole time, but at some points he was alone versus a Jewish crowd or a Christian crowd. So he was actually doing a taqiyya. And if you read it like that, then it's completely different. This is like your thinking needs to be. And if you don't understand the way Muslims think, like to them, like this proves that Muhammad was a genius because he fooled the unbelievers when he was in a minority position, and we should follow him. And you don't see it as a logical fallacy, but we're like, oh my God, see how he fooled those idiots, while in his mind there he was 100% consistent all the time. Then suddenly, like, oh, it's not that he was an emotional child that should not be respected. Suddenly he's a genius that should be adored. When you just facts or something like this, like, this is not how it works. I see. Imar Flores, I was born Christian, now Noahide. If we read the Old Testament and believe its truth, it's easy to see that Christianity is Roman Greco invention. Man cannot be be the creator of the universe, homies. And more than that, if you think like a Jew, genuinely think like a Jew, which, by the way, Hasidic movements, don't get me wrong, a lot of parts of the Jewish thinking and Jewish rabbis were, for example, influenced by Islam, influenced by Zoroastrianism, influenced. It's not core, like it's not core to Judaism, and people who go and investigate Judaism understand it. I feel like it depends on the person and the personality, right? But some Jews, for example, also don't have a purely Jewish thinking either, right? They lived among Christians, for example, or they got inspired by Greco-Roman ideas and things like that. Like some are good, some are bad. It's like the Talmud is about it. Like the Talmud teaches you reasoning, and part of the reasoning, sometimes they would admit that the Greeks had better arguments. So if the goys are smart, then learn from them, right? But you have to have like the reasoning skills, the logical skills, and things like that. And if you come from the thought that in Judaism you ask what's the purpose and not what it looks like, right? So I brought this example for you when I was talking to AP, like, tell me, like here's a cup, right? So Greco-Roman thinking was like, describe what you're seeing. They were like, oh, it has like it's a circular, it's a circular cup, it's made out of plastic, it's transparent, it has a greenish hue, and it looks like it's gonna hold like about 400 milliliters, right? And if you're gonna ask a Jew, hey, describe this, and it's like, oh, that's a tool for drinking water, but it's something that you can use when you're sitting in a desk. So this is a tool for drinking water that has an open lid, because when you are sitting, then it is more comfortable to drink this way. Those are two different kinds of thinking. And depending on the thinking you have, you're going to give a completely different answer. And if somebody comes to a culture that they don't know, or they think like, or they come as like, why did the Rambam say do not teach the Torah to Muslims? Because Muslims have such a fundamentally different thinking, like what I said right now. They see those like those moments where Muhammad said this and that, like he's a genius. He fooled the Jews. He fooled the Christians. He told them that he thinks they're smart, but clearly he was tricking them. So we're like, wow, Muhammad is amazing. If this is the way you think, this is how you understand it. And if you come from like, that's not moral, then Muhammad is a bad person. And if you come to things like, it looks like you don't think that it comes from this intellect or planning ahead, you just think that this is what he felt and he said it on a whim, then you have a completely different impression. Yeah. So there's like, and the Christians have the moral system, so you can they understand morality, for example. But then you're like, but then they still think in the Greco-Roman way that they need to describe, like they would describe a cup as something that transparent, like they would, this cup is like, oh yeah, it's like it's a cup and it's transparent and it is a greenish hue and it's made from plastic. And it's like I do, like, who cares? Right? Or like, obviously for an aesthetic reason, if you're trying to build a church, you would care. But if you're trying to hold a conversation on something that is, I don't know, like, uh what is the moral thing to do, and you use God to prove a moral point, then who cares what this God looks like? Like, don't have an image or don't have a statue or an image, because who cares what God looks like? Like, seriously, who cares? That's not the purpose we have cut for. Israeli influencer admits the prophet was a genius. Sinwar is also a genius. Some geniuses you have to right away, you know? And say, like, so what? So many smart people that they should not exist, should not be followed. Because I have a different logic, right? Who is it gonna serve? Me following? Is it gonna be better for humanity, or is it gonna be better for the person I follow? All right. So what was the moment that really gave me this this beautiful moment of unbelieving? Note, and I know you cannot hear it, but oh, maybe I have this part. Let me figure it out, because I don't really feel like watching the whole. Here, there is the part where you can see the text. Okay. All right, what people are saying. Mm. How do I find it? I should have done it ahead of time. Oh, I know. I'm gonna use Control F and hope I remember Command F. Command. Maybe I will remember the kind of phrasing he used. Mm. Um, Watch Latma TV Muslim War Council. Is it in English or Hebrew? Well, maybe I should watch it now so we can have a little bit of something funny. Yeah, oh my God. Who would have thought I can do a search? Here, haha. This is the point I wanted to show you. Will I play? Yes, yes. I'll just play a bit, some parts, Imar Flores, where is it? Islam and Christianity are Temu Judaism, bad limitations that had the need to convert by the sword. The Americans, Africa, and the Middle East, their creator promised the land of Israel to the Jewish people, period. Be humble. There are good examples of implementing Judaism in a way that is a new creation that people even don't know it's Judaism. and that is the national structure of the United States and Britain, for example, where in both cases they looked. I think it's obviously Britain was first. Britain was like read the structure and the way that Judaism built the nationality, and they took the principles and did it for the English nationality. Like they didn't, right? So this is actually an implementation where like you get the things that in Judaism that work for a society, that make it a good society, but you have your own folklore, your own tales, your own stories, things like that. And I think, and then it doesn't, and then people even don't even know it's Judaism anymore, right? But it's a very good way of implementing Judaism. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Is it stuck? Uh-huh. One sec. I think I have to refresh it because when I ran so much, so far away. Does it not? Oh yeah, it just got stuck on this image. Okay. Not also here.
For me, I find that the settlements, even as a Zionist, I find that a little bit.
This is anti-Semitism. What is gonna? I mean, you're gonna get it. Like, on the way. It's not like not that exact sentence, but a little bit later you're gonna see like there's an anti-Semitic kind of belief that. Okay, I don't know why. I just already talked about it. Anyway, let's go. Just let me know that you can hear him. That's the reason I stopped. All right, you guys are, I think you're talking to each other because I don't understand what's going on. Yeah.
Provocative. I mean, there is a lot of land already within that Israel have that they can build on, but to build there in that region seems provocative to me. Do you think I'm wrong to feel? I mean, it's maybe a feeling more than it's rational.
I do think it's wrong, but I'd love to explore it with you because I don't think you're alone in that. Mm-hmm. And I wonder to what extent this is predicated on the false representations that this is not Israeli land, or this is land that has been taken away from someone else. There are... In terms of the temporary administration that Israel instituted, it recognized the existing legal frameworks for property law, which include a real mixture of Ottoman law, some aspects of what Jordan implemented during its own occupation, in terms of the custodian of enemy property, and what Israel has subsequently instituted in terms of planning regulations in accordance with the Oslo Accords. There were big misrepresentations, both factual and legal, about the issue of the settlements. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we step back and just look at it from a moral perspective for a moment, this notion that Jews shouldn't live in certain areas simply because they're Jews is utterly repugnant. So on that basis, someone's going to have to explain to me what is provocative about Jews living in Judea and Samaria, about Jewish communities being established there. Especially when I've, explained all of the misrepresentations about the status of the territory. But on a factual basis, there are organizations in the West Bank monitoring illegal building. Some of it's being funded by the EU. And it's in Area C, and it is often at the insistence of the Palestinian Authority also. In flagrant breach of the Oslo Accords. There is illegal building in the West Bank, and it is being done for political purposes, but it's the inverse. It's actually the Palestinians that are instituting it.
So what are they doing? What's the illegal building that they're doing?
Well, one example is that on an area that is not designated for building in terms of planning and zoning and planning, the first thing that will go up as a temporary structure, as a sort of porter cabin, is supposedly a school in the middle of nowhere, not next to any community. But it's important that it's a school because of the optics of when that is removed. According to planning law, if you build illegally here in London, I know because it was part of my practice as a barrister, the council will come and the bulldozers will come. Right? That is what happens in a country where there is rule of law. But here, increasingly, the government isn't enforcing planning regulations because these are the optics of taking down a porter cabin with an EU plaque on it are extremely problematic. So that is the first land grab, if you will, that is set out, and then they'll bring generators and water because this isn't next to any particular community. It's set up as an outpost, as part of this kind of political process of establishing facts on the ground. So again, we're faced with the reality, which is actually the complete inverse of what is being put out in terms of international discourse. And I can completely understand why your initial gut reaction to what are called Israeli settlements, I mean, even the language on this is charged, would be negative. And that's because of all of the misinformation that's associated with it. If we think about the potential implications on a peaceful resolution, I mean, these are communities that are being built in Area C of the Oslo Accords zoning, that was kept under full Israeli administration. And that's where the vast majority of Jews in the West Bank live, because they have been ethnically cleansed from the rest of it. There is a demand by the Palestinian Authority that there be no Jews. No Jews in the Palestinian Authority, no Jews in a Palestinian state, any future Palestinian state. It's extraordinary. Now, yesterday, we are told that the IDF eliminated in Gaza an individual called Aziz Salah. Aziz Salah.
Yeah, I was saying, if in case anyone forgot, we have 20% Arabs in Israel, and Muslims can buy and purchase land anywhere in Israel and in apartment, except for like closed communities where, to be honest, I probably cannot get into either. But this is how crazy it is. Like you, and also they can get Israeli citizenship if they go due process and everything like that. And I just want to, like, this is how crazy it is. And Hebron had like all those Gaza, Hebron, Jews lived there without ever living, like continuously, before Islam was invented, until this invention of a Palestinian identity and where with the Jordanian and Egyptian occupation, where they were ethnically cleansed. And the whole world thinks that the right thing to do is to not allow even Jews even purchase rights. Like, it's like it's crazy. Like, even people, like, you don't have to be a citizen or hold a certain religion. And most places in the world, like in countries, like, I can buy a property in France, I think, probably. Yeah, but
became notorious because of an image that was at the center of the Second Intifada. And it underpins why it is that the West Bank that is under Palestinian Authority control is free of Jews. In 2000, 2 Israeli reservists lost their way. They found themselves by mistake in Ramallah, and they went to the local police station looking for help, looking for assistance to get out of there. They didn't find assistance at the local police station. Instead, they were lynched. They were lynched, they were cut open, they were mutilated, their livers, by all reports, were eaten by their attackers. And Aziz Salah became so famous because he held up his hands covered in blood to the window, to the baying crowd below. And that image went around the world and became a defining image of the Second Intifada.
And they were proud of that. I wish I could do the impression. And they're proud of that. I don't know how to do that, but you guys get me.
It is remarkable that nearly 25 years later, he was, by all accounts, eliminated in Gaza yesterday. But that image was emblazoned on the minds of many Israelis, and it's one of the reasons that there are big red signs outside of Palestinian Authority-controlled areas in the West Bank warning any Israeli citizens from going in. It's unlawful because of the consequences that will befall them, that befell these two reservists in 2000. They say Israeli citizens, they don't actually mean Israeli citizens, they mean Jews, because Arab Israelis, which are 20% of the population, come and go as they please. They are not subject to the same genocidal threats. But unfortunately, you are faced with a situation where in Palestinian-controlled areas, Gaza, clearly we know, and in the West Bank, that land has been ethnically cleansed of Jews. It has been made Judenrein, which is a phrase that we're aware of the Second World War. You mentioned the Jewish experience there. It is very pertinent to what Israel is having to encounter today. Having said all of that, if we were to just give for one moment the benefit of the doubt that, Israeli settlements pose some sort of difficulty to establishing a peaceful solution, which I cannot accept, because there was no issue with withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, despite that there were Israeli settlements there. There were communities that were uprooted.
No issue as in... Well, it was done.
It was done, ultimately. So of course, there were issues
you're saying
internally.
It could be done in the West Bank?
On principle, the principle has been established. It was also what happened in the Sinai when Israel withdrew from the Sinai, and that went to Egypt.
But there weren't Israelis living in Sinai, were there?
There were communities that were evacuated in the same way.
Right.
Now, of course, the scale and the level of Jewish communities living in Judea and Samaria is far more significant, and also this being, part of the Jewish heartland.
How many? Do we know how many roughly are living there?
I'm not going to hazard a guess, just in case I get it.
Hundreds of thousands, though.
Well, it depends. It depends which parts you're talking about, and it depends. Means that the sand timer is running out. Come to negotiate now rather than.
That's my point, that it's provocative.
Well, I'm saying I don't accept the premise of that. But if that were the case, then it would be an incentive to seek peace. It was making peace harder. Think about it as a sand timer, if you will. So, if the building of settlements means that the sand timer is running out, come to negotiate now rather than.
That's my point, that it's provocative.
Well, I'm saying I don't accept the premise of that. But if that were the case, then it would be an incentive to seek peace sooner rather than later. I think the bigger the bigger problem is that the Palestinian Authority have no incentive to seek a peaceful solution. Mahmoud Abbas, who's in his 19th year of his 4-year term as the Palestinian Authority president, relies on security cooperation with Israel, as I mentioned earlier, to prevent a Hamas takeover of the Gaza Strip in the same way that they took over the West Bank. He also relies on the outside enemy that is Israel, just like any despot, right? They need an outside source of all of the problems in society to maintain his political control as a corrupt leader. But he also relies on international...
I didn't say anything smart. I'm sorry. All I said is that I wanted to go back a little because there was something important that she said that I think should be heard. So that's what I said. Is like, let me go back a little.
National donations, which flood in as a result of the perpetuation of the conflict. So what incentive does Abbas have to seek a solution? None. And you see that in the education that is meted out to Palestinians in the West Bank, just as in Gaza, and also in the fact that he pays the salaries of terrorists. And that he'll come to the UN and essentially give these grandiose speeches claiming victimhood, and at the same time be encouraging terrorism at home and not provide for the basics as he is required to for the Palestinians. He has no interest in taking the rubbish out.
Do you think?
Let me skip a bit. Okan. Yeah, I'm not muted. Because I want to find this moment. Maybe it took him a long time, longer than I thought. Where was the moment that he realized that he's an idiot? I cherished it so much. Where was it? It took some time, I guess. When you're an idiot, it takes time. It's the way it is, you know. I mean, that's what. Yeah. That's the thing. It like and some Israelis are like this anti-Semitic thinking, like some things that were like we would accept it if it's Jews, but nobody else ever, is so profound that people just don't even see it, you know. But I want to find the moment of miracle, because there is no miracle yet here. I remember it took time. Like after some, like at some point it was like, oh, I get it. And I was like, and it was 2 days ago. So I watched it first. I was like, it's the first time I've seen it. And then I was like, I saved it. I have to show it to you guys. Should have remembered the moment, but. And it talks about like like how many lies there are, right? Like there is no apartheid. There is like she did an internship in Israel, and there were and it worked with a judge that was an Arab that put the president and an Israeli prime minister in jail. And TikTok, where is it? Where was maybe it was somewhere where I stopped, because that's probably where I was like, miracle, miracle. Maybe I'll just skip a little bit randomly. Maybe it will just
Wow.
It looked like the
2 hours and 20 minutes, I guess.
best room that the
Super
UN had
easy
to offer
find.
within the headquarters, the UN building. We had this incredible view of the river, and I was privileged to share a platform with Professor Alan Dershowitz, John Spencer, Andrew Fox,
Wow.
Major Andrew Fox, Colonel Richard Kemp,
Wow,
and
fantastic.
I think it was one of the first times, certainly I remember, a real discussion about real international law, what proportionality means, and what Israel was doing on the ground, given the fact that Andrew, Richard and myself had all been on the ground in Gaza very recently.
Proportionality has come up as a word from people attacking Israel. Is that why this word, I keep hearing this, we've heard this since the beginning of the conflict?
We have, and it's being misused. I mean, proportionality is probably the most misrepresented aspect of international law in history. Many people refer to it as though you have to compare casualty figures on both sides, and a proportional response is one that's equal or equivalent. I mean, that's nonsense. It's not how international law works. It's also macabre to think about matters in those terms, and it would only serve, if that was the reality, would only serve.
It would serve Iran perfectly, because they're gonna get rid of the Sunnis and the Jews at the same time. They would be super happy.
To encourage Hamas to increase the civilian casualty count. Proportionality is a principle in the laws of armed conflict, and it requires a military commander to weigh up the anticipated collateral damage against the expected military advantage of a strike. So in international law, and in the law of armed conflict in particular, there is a general expectation. It's very sad, but there is a general expectation that there will be civilian casualties. And the laws of armed conflict are designed to try and keep those as low as possible. And proportionality looks at the need to advance military goals. Here in the case of Gaza, it was defeating Hamas as a political and military entity and returning the hostages. In the north of Israel, vis-a-vis Hezbollah, it's creating a situation where the 60,000 plus Israelis who have been evacuated from their homes in the north for the last 12 months are able to return home because Hezbollah is no longer firing incessantly on those communities. And when you look at the broader aims, and then you also look at individual military aims. So what is the anticipated military advantage of hitting a Hamas command center? They will no longer be able to use it to operate. Or taking out a weapons, a rocket launch facility. They won't be able to fire onto Israeli civilian communities with it. So each of those individual military advantages, which are direct and concrete, need to be weighed up against the anticipated or the expected civilian collateral damage to make sure that isn't excessive. There is no universal formula that deals with this, but
All right, I gave up. I'm gonna go to the next video. There was a moment there I was like, oh my God, got it. But then I forgot where it is and it's too long for me to find it. But that's an important conversation, you know. Here, the other one. That's also another.
Centuries, Christian anti-Semitism, racial anti-Semitism. There is this paranoia, clinical paranoia about Jewish power. I say it's clinical paranoia because it's untrue. It's based on nonsense. The Jews are the most persecuted people in history. How can they have demonic power? But nevertheless, there is a belief. The Jews and power, that is the problem. You have Israel. Israel is powerful. Israel has made itself powerful on the basis that only if Israel has military power.
This is, I think, is an important conversation. So many people are like, we now get, like, we understand how the Holocaust happened.
Thorny issue of Islamism within Islam, radical jihad, these groups. A lot of people simply don't have the time,
for sure,
the patience or the inclination, let's be fair, to want to do the reading and the work in order to understand. And then you come to the point that it's complicated. And there is no such thing, you know, these sweeping narratives that the people buy into. It's just easy. So it's easier for people just to take one particular point, hold up a placard saying, I want a globalist intifada. It makes me feel good. I'm on the right side of history.
Yep.
And here we are.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And this is the road to hell. I have to say, and a lot of us in the Jewish community think this, now we understand why the Holocaust happened.
We do.
By which I mean, now we understand how, I mean, this is the question everyone's asked all these years. Okay, there were the Nazis. They believed what they believed. That was terrible. But they were facilitated by millions of people in Germany and in Eastern Europe looking the other way. How could that have happened? And now we understand.
Oh, I think about the previous video, there is a very important point that I forgot to mention, is that Natasha is so amazing. I want to marry her. I mean, yeah, she's like the person I watch is like, be my wife. I mean, it's not that like, it's not in, it doesn't even matter. Like, we can be married to other people as well. It's not like I prefer women or like, it's not about that. It just, she's so amazing. I was like,
now we understand, for all these reasons that we're talking about, because we're seeing it happening now in real time. We're seeing how the Western world, faced with a genocidal, barbaric set of people who did the most appalling things on October 7, and who did it as part of an axis of evil, of true evil, of people who say they wish to eradicate Jews from the face of the earth, and they wish to destroy the state of Israel. Faced with this, which is genocide, a genocidal intention, true genocide, the idea of wiping out a people and wiping out a country on the basis you don't like the people.
I also want to add, when I talked about like, you know, my global experience and like, so actually like the stories of communism and everything like that, yeah, that's one side. But there is also another thing that my family got to experience in living memory, which I got to hear from my grandpa and my dad and everything like that, as people who lived in Central Asia, next to Muslims, right? The October 7th attack for my grandpa, for example, it was like, yeah, I saw it before. That was his like, I was like telling the horrors and like things like, yeah, I saw it. Like the Abkhazians, like the Muslims, like that injured, like they did the same. And I was like, my dad was like, yeah, do you know what Muslims in Central Asia did? For example, when the Russians were advancing, they would leave their children and wives behind and run. And they knew that would slow the Russians down because they would be like stuck with them, and because they'd be busy babysitting, that would stop them. So the men were like, that's a great way to like, you know, make the Russians in Central Asia like not go as fast. They just leave their wives and children, and the Russians are like, wait, we have to take care of them now. So that's one, but like that's just a story. Like, but my family, my parents escaped the Georgian Civil War. So it was a war between Muslims and Christians, basically. It's Abkhazia, but like Abkhazia is Muslim. You can say that. And when I ask my grandpa, he describes the atrocities that the Muslims committed. When I asked my dad, it was like, yeah, don't believe grandpa, the Christians did the same. Like, I don't know. I believe my grandpa that's probably that it wasn't skewed to, maybe, I don't know. It's hard to know, okay? But my dad was like, no, they did. I think they did the same. But like so, you know, whatever I told my grandpa is like, yeah, I know. I was like, you know, they play like soccer with severed heads. I was like, yeah, sure, the Muslims, like, yeah, they did it too. I like, yeah, I know, yeah, they do. I was like, saying, I was like, yeah, I saw it. I know what it is. Like like it was the same way, you know. So I experienced like you know, it's like, and I was like, you guys, that's that attack. You know what they did to the Armenians? The Armenian Holocaust was like October 7th on a huge scale. So my grandpa, like living there, like in that area, like they saw it, they experienced it, they went through it. Like my parents escaped, my grandparents stayed there. And I was like, I'm telling stories to my grandpa. It's like, yeah, it was the same when we come from. Like, oh, yeah, they did this and did that. And I was like, oh, it's amazing. I was like, I thought they were being creative. Apparently, like, not. How awful.
Faced with that, the West is saying, well, they have a point. And now we understand how the Holocaust happened, because it's the same thing with the same kind of people doing the same kind of thing. These people in the Islamic world, I call them, I think the late Christopher Hitchens, possibly the first.
Anyway, just another, I feel like I need to say just one sentence. It's like, you know, when the world was like, I was shocked and everything, my grandpa was like, yeah. I was like looking, I was like, why are you shocked? I was like, and people are like, you know, I was shocked. Like, I was shocked. For not because what they did. I was shocked because it was. I think the more than anything, the global community shocked me, and this existential crisis, like this realization, shocked me. Even though I like, you know it, I knew it all my life, but it was like, you know, it was in the back of my mind, and suddenly like it jumped to the front. And but the West is like, can you believe they did this? Like, and their reaction was like, no way people do things like that. Like it's like those are fairy tales. And I was like, and my grandpa was like, why, like my grandpa's like, why are you shocked? Like, where's the surprise here? Like, what? You know? I'm like, like, I was like, why are they shocked? Like, I saw it before. It's like, they do it every time. Where's the shock here? Why you guys, why are you surprised? I don't get it. Do you know what humanity is? Same planet, as if, right? It's as if it's the same planet.
First person to call them this, Islamo-Nazis. They're not just Islamo-Nazis because they kind of act like the Nazis. If you look at the long and complicated history, the history of the Palestinian Arabs in pre-Israel Palestine, they were Hitler's legions in the Middle East. Their religious leader made an agreement with Hitler that if Hitler won the war, then he, Haj Amin al-Husseini, who was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, would ensure that every Jew in the Middle East, not just in Palestine, every Jew in the Middle East would be slaughtered. That's the heirs of the Palestinians. That man, Haj Amin, is Mahmoud Abbas's pin-up boy. He says it. He's my hero, right? So this is what we're dealing with.
Can we just stop? Because there's a lot of people who wouldn't know who Mahmoud Abbas is. Could you just explain?
Mahmoud Abbas is the leader of the
I'm gonna skip because this is boring. But I mean, I think you guys know it. But there was a comment here that I want to address. Somebody said about AP said that during World War II, even Jews weren't believing that Germans were putting Jews in concentration camp. This is something that I tried to, I talked with them. I talked about it with David Wood, actually. They didn't believe it. I was like, oh no, they knew. For the vast majority, they literally had not, they couldn't do anything. You're living in a shtetl or whatever, right? You don't have anywhere to get arms. You don't have those connections. The neighbors, the cities around you is turning their back. You're not a nation. You are too small, and you have nowhere to go because every single country, except I think actually the East, which is, the East is also the direction of the concentration camp, closed their borders to Jews. There are two options. Believe and understand that you are completely, there is nothing, absolutely nothing. It's either you say bye to your family, run into the woods, and then you guys ever seen woods? You think it's or you're maybe it's already better to die in a ghetto or in gas chambers. You choose your death, right? And then after you do that, do you think it's humanly possible to stay in a mode of acceptance? When you have no choice, that you have nothing, absolutely nothing you can do. So every person just chose how they prefer to die, basically, right? And if you have a baby, for example, and you can join the partisans, you have a choice. Are you gonna die with your baby, or are you gonna drop the baby or kill it or whatever, or leave it, and then that baby that's probably gonna be one way, and join the partisans, for example. And maybe some people would rather be with their baby and live a shorter life, let's say it like that, okay? And once you've made the decision, because I really truly believe they knew, but the moment you understand, you have you choose your death. That's the basic line. Or or you don't have a choice at all. Sometimes you literally don't have a choice. Maybe you're 95% of the Lithuanian Jews died. That's where my mom's family is originally from. All of the family that stayed there, they were shot they didn't go to a concentration camp. They were so much on the, like, you know, on the by the way list, that there wasn't, like, they didn't dig a hole, they didn't concentrate you all and send it, like, not to the forest and not to the, no, they just like, they all got on the street, in the street, like, nothing special, no concentration camp, not going to the woods and like digging a nice hole for you, you know, and putting, like, and going all together, nothing. And I was like, pfft. I was like, oh, pass by, shoot, go. Body on the street, and like all of them like that, you know, it's like zero. What? Okay, so once you, okay, let's say there is, you have and now you have a choice, you understand, like, okay, if this is the deaths I have to choose from, maybe the concentration camp is the one that is the most optimistic. But now that I've realized that and I have nothing to do, I might as well not believe it and say, nah, it's not going to happen, because I want to enjoy the rest of whatever is left with just, you know, enjoying the day to day, like cherishing your time with your family and things like that, pretending there isn't like a time, like a send, you know, the send clock or whatever. I forgot how to say it. So this is like no. It's like it's a bit of it's a bit of misrepresentation of human psychology. Same with the, by the way, the leftists, the hardcore leftists that were kidnapped, and that, like, not, there are not a lot of them, that were kidnapped and that were taken by hostages. They saw firsthand, or like they saw their family murdered, right? They all, and then they they keep believing the same things. Why? Because they saw truth and chose, and they realized that in their mindset, in their value system, they'd rather not be in a position that they, for example, kill someone, even if it means that they're gonna get annihilated. That's also a choice. And then their mind switches and they act this way. And then they deny it, and like they do rationalization. But I wholeheartedly believe that this is just the death they chose. Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit here. Here. Oh, actually, I feel like this is a critical point. Okay, I'll continue watching a little bit and I'll skip back to the naked Jew hatred part. Sorry.
Palestinian Authority by a man, Mahmoud Abbas, who says, Haj Amin al-Husseini, great hero of the Palestinian people, you know, he is my role model. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who are Islamo-Nazis, and the West, as they did in the 1930s, says, we should negotiate with them. We should, you know, find common cause. They have a point. Same thing. It's very frightening. And the Jewish people, you know, Jewish community here, America, and in Israel, they're fighting an actual war, of desperate war. But the Jewish people is having to grapple with this now. That, you know, those of us in the Jewish community who thought that with the discovery of Auschwitz, anti-Semitism would be a thing of the past and never again, and the West had learned what evil was, it had looked it in the face and it actually had defeated it, and we would be safe. Now we know. Now we know. It's the same thing. It's the same thing happening again, and only the Jewish people can look after itself.
Melanie, when you could, when you talk about this situation, think about the student who wears the Che Guevara t-shirt. And as somebody from a Latin American background, I know more about Che than most people. And they would not want to admit that he was an authoritarian. He executed not only people who opposed him.
You guys, I'm gonna put some, video, and I'm gonna go for like 2 minutes because I wanna stay with you, but if I don't take care of a little bit of something, then you're gonna see me being very restless. So okay, so I'm gonna choose the part where I wanted to watch. Yeah, Che was it's a awful. I actually had a fight with somebody like that who had a Che Guevara or something. I told him throw it away. Like that was my reaction. And I was like, oh, who cares? And I'm like, that's the same. I feel like it's the same as having a person that has it. Like you're walking with a Hitler or Stalin or whatever. Like, why is it okay to have a Che Guevara, whatever? And people like, and now I'm smart enough to say, if you meet a person like that and they refuse to throw away their Che Guevara thing, cut ties with them immediately. They don't deserve your friendship, your attention, and your acknowledging that they exist. Okay. And here, this is. Okay, I'm gonna skip to this point so that I would have more time until the point that I actually want to react to and be present for. You guys understand me. I don't have to explain too much, right?
The idea that the Jews have no connection with the land is the reverse of the truth. The Jews are the only people for whom the land of Israel, the Holy Land, was ever their national kingdom. It was the national kingdom of the Jewish people centuries before Islam was created and before waves of colonizers came in, the Romans, the Christians, the different types of Muslim, and then the Ottoman Empire, which collapsed after the First World War. And as a result, the West carved up the Middle East, created a number of countries, Iraq, Syria, and gave Palestine under mandate to the British for the homeland of the Jewish people. And that homeland, as defined by the parameters, the geographical boundaries of Palestine, to begin with, in 1920, it consisted of what is now Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, and Jordan. Along came Winston Churchill, and for reasons of realpolitik, gave about 70% of that land of Palestine to become Transjordan. Okay? What was left was Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. And in 1922, Britain was given a mandate to settle the Jews alone in that territory, throughout that territory, for their national homeland. And on the back of the returning Jews poured in from the Arab world, from elsewhere, vast numbers of people who could see that the Jews were coming back, they were bringing jobs, they were bringing prosperity, they were bringing growth, they were going to create a homeland. So everybody poured in from the Arab countries. And a very large proportion of people who are now said to be Palestinians and are said to have been there since time immemorial came in during the 1920s and 1930s. So that is the history, and the Palestinian identity was created artificially in the 1960s, cooked up between Yasser Arafat, who was then running the PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, terrorist organization, and the Soviet Union, who had a common interest, the left and the Palestinian cause, in subverting the West. The Russians wanted to subvert the West, to take over its brain and basically destroy it. And Yasser Arafat wanted to colonize the Western intellectual mind with the idea that the Palestinians were a nationality who were there from the beginning. And consequently, the thing went into reverse. History went into reverse. And if you buy the Palestinian cause, what you are buying into is not the redress of an ancient wrong, an ancient grievance against a people, the Palestinians, who were dispossessed. What you're actually buying into is writing the Jewish people out of their own history in the land. And not only are you doing that, you're not only hitting Israel and the Israelis, you are hitting at Judaism itself. Because Judaism, again, not understood in the West, Judaism is not a religion in the way that Christianity is or Islam is. In other words, it's a relationship between you and the Almighty. It's not just that. Judaism is a kind of three-legged stool consisting of the people, the religion, and the land. The religion is based on the people being given a divine mandate in the land to live under a set of laws. And so if you take one of those legs away, Judaism collapses. Now, it doesn't mean that to be a Jew, you've got to go and live in Israel. It doesn't mean that to be a Jew, you've got to be, religiously observant. Not at all. But Judaism itself is that three-legged stool. And so if you basically write the Jews out of their history, their own history in the land, you are not just attacking Israel fundamentally, you're attacking Judaism itself. It's a fundamentally anti-Jewish thing. And
I think this is something critical, because this is something that I've come to realize. Like, they are attacking like everything is fundamentally like they're attacking Judaism and they do it via the Jews, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Like, they are against that. This is an ideologically driven battle, and this is why it comes from universities and intellectuals and things like that, because they are the ones who create the ideologies, and part of it is also creating an ideology that is like, when they're creating their ideologies, they are the ones that understand that, okay, we have to fight the Jews ideologically, and we're going to do it by eradicating them.
This is the terrible thing that the liberal left in the West has got itself into, that it tells itself that by supporting this cause, it is proving itself to itself all the time as moral and decent and forward-looking and progressive and taking the side of the oppressed against the oppressor. They are doing precisely the opposite. They are standing for lies. They are standing for distortion. They are standing for a denial of reason and fact. They are supporting the oppressor, the colonizer. They are supporting colonization against a liberation movement. Zionism is the liberation movement of the Jewish people against oppressive colonization. So this is the tragedy, because in Britain, it's not the same in America, but in Britain, there is no platform where one is able to say this in the mainstream media. Okay, you've got occasional journalists on occasional publications who say something like this. But generally, if you stand up and say this, and I know this from personal experience, and others know it from personal experience, if you stand up and say this unequivocally, you don't get invited back onto the TV or radio show, and you don't.
This is why you only hear the from left, from solid left, to far left, from solid left to far left. This is the only perspective. And even a person like Elon Levy, And I told the AP, was like, why did he stabbing the spokesperson for the government? He was a leftist, and there was an issue with him. But the people of Israel, a lot of people in Israel, like when they realized what his actual opinion, like he is hardcore left, right? And so he really cannot be. And then those who really can represent us Israelis will not be allowed. So only those who live in a certain neighborhood in Tel Aviv, who have a perfect English accent and only live their life in the West, are usually the ones that are allowed to represent us, because this is stereotypically what happens when, those are the people who are. I'm lagging a little bit. Sorry. This is what can I do? I mean, it says like the connection is great. Weird. Yeah, these are the only person. And then suddenly, like, people come to Israel, like, wait, people here think completely different than what is presented. Like, you literally talk from the left, from the solid left to the far left. That's the whole spectrum. So the left, it is presented like the right, and everything more right than the left is presented as far right, and then the far left is presented as the left. And there are maybe 10% of the Jewish population in Israel. To 30%, 10 to 30%. And then the far right, that's the fun part, is that the far left is like in the 0.1% or something like that. They found 5 people in the whole the land of Israel to represent what they want to believe is the mainstream left.
Get invited to write for a newspaper, generally speaking, with some exceptions. And so vast numbers of people, I would say the vast majority of people in Britain, even those who are well disposed towards Israel, they don't understand the enormity of the obscenity of what we are living through in this perverse reaction that you describe.
Listening to you, Melanie, there were points a couple of years ago, or even last year, before October the 7th, I'd be like, I would have been, hang on a second, this is a bit much. But then when I saw what happened on October the 7th and October the 8th, just the wave of anti-Semitism immediately.
Yeah, that's the moment where I was like shedding tears, like not believing what I'm listening. Like, I want to start it. I want to hear it again from the start here. Naked Jew hatred. I knew it's the point where I watched them and I was like, hallelujah. And with the other guy, Winston, and that's the second time, because the first time was with the Winston person, who at some point, but like it's too long and I should have marked it. They made it easier here. They should have like added like a bookmark in the other video, where it's like the moment Winston finally understands he had internalized anti-Semitism.
October the 7th, I'd be like, I would have been, hang on a second, this is a bit much. But then when I saw what happened on October the 7th and October the 8th, just the wave of anti-Semitism immediately before any reaction had started from Israel, pro-Palestine marches. And as well, just the rhetoric people were saying and the things that they were saying, I was like, this is awful. This is actually anti-Semitism. Just raw, naked Jew hatred. It was violent.
Well, that's what's been so shocking to so many people, because it's been so blatant and so obvious that people no longer feel any kind of shame or embarrassment about being anti-Jew. Now, it's not quite true, having said that, because a lot of people still feel enough shame and embarrassment to couch it as anti-Zionism. But it makes no sense. We hate Zionists. I mean, as people have been screaming, it makes no sense in its own terms, because clearly they're talking about Jews. They're not talking about Zionism as an abstract philosophy. They don't even know what it is. I mean, if you ask them what is Zionism or what is a Zionist, I mean, like people screaming from the river to the sea. They don't know which river and they don't know which sea. But it's even more than that. It's people are screaming about Jews per se, and of course, Jews.
You guys, did I tell you two super cool stories? I mean, one was like the fun is like when Nusaya from Nas Academy made a post on X writing that Nasrallah was his terrorist. Well, Nasrallah was my terrorist. I lived in the north of Israel, blah, blah, blah. It was long. I only read the first few lines. And then like the conclusion is probably something like he's glad he's dead. Like somebody wrote him like, go back to Poland. And he's like a Muslim, Arab Muslim. I was like laughing so hard. And the other thing I want to say, like this also proves in an ideological fight, right? Like once you start accepting Jewish values, you're a Jew. And the other story I have, there is a crazy story with like a Native Peruvian community from around. I know there is Iquitos, but apparently it was like a thing. But I read a specific individual story of somebody who grew up, like their family was they grew up in a city, like somewhere in Peru. Obviously, I don't think it was in Lima, but somewhere where Jews don't exist. But there is Christianity. They were very devout Catholics, but at some point they started asking questions. And he said, like, my family moved from church to church. And then at some point they started living by the rules of the Torah. So they kept the Sabbath, and they read it, and they didn't know, like, for example, like that tefillin and stuff like that, they didn't understand what the description of what are you supposed to do. Like you cannot understand it just by reading the Torah. But they tried the best as they could. So because they lived this kind of life, obviously they weren't technically Jewish, but the people around them started calling them Jews. And they said, like, I grew up like that, and I never saw it as a problem, right? That like we were nicknamed Jews, Native American, right? Like Peruvian Native American, like Peruvian Native Peruvians, not Spanish, right? Like people were calling us, and then he said, like, I never saw it as a problem until they got to high school, and he said, like, there was a one moment like he was explaining in class, like what they do, like what they follow and stuff like that, and he said, like, and his classmate, while he was like in that class debate, his classmate told him, you killed Jesus. And I was like reading that, I was like, oh my God. Like, he is a never been to the Middle East. I don't think his ancestors for the last 10,000 years were in this area. And like, you killed Jesus, you know? And like a Muslim Arab gets the go back to Poland. Like, I was like, that is such an amazing encapsulation of exactly what it looks like. This is what it is.
Jews are being attacked physically and verbally all the time at an unprecedented rate here in Britain and elsewhere in the West. In America, it's happening also. In France, it's off the scale. And again, this is quite a complicated business to unpick because, look, anti-Semitism is called the longest hatred. In fact, it is the eternal hatred.
Yes, and it's ideological. And I think it's time, like, I grew up as like, you know, when I think it's that fact is getting revealed now because the genocide is not a new concept. There were many genocides, right? There were the Tutsis, like, and it's always like when you are a minority, then people get frustrated and they go, like, they get the torches out and they look for someone to burn, and it's easy to burn the minorities. Like, you build a story and you burn them. Now that Israel exists, right? And this is how you learn about the Holocaust. And for some reason, the whole continent of Europe decided to participate in that game with a, blind eye from the United States, as well as a little bit of active participation from the other, and a complete agreement from the Arab world. It's like, okay, so the Holocaust was unique because it was global. It was internationally. It was an international effort. The bottom line, that's the reality of it. It was international effort to eradicate the Jews. So I was like, okay, get it. Like, it's a minority problem. But now we have Israel, right? And it's not that like it's Jews living in other countries. It's Israel. And it's like, okay, but now they're not your neighbors. They're far, like, why would, like, suddenly, like, the question changes. Like, people were like, how did the Holocaust happen? So they were like, okay, they still, and then the Tutsis did in Rwanda, they did the same on purpose, right? The elite did it on purpose. They start telling the same stories on the Tutsis, and then there was the genocide of the Tutsis. It's okay, so it happens. Minorities and stuff. Like, you had the Roma, because apparently it's not politically correct to say gypsies, but you had the gypsies, they were also eradicated, things like that. It's just not special, but then you learn it, and this is how I feel like you learn it. But the thing is, like, it's a lie. It was always a lie, because it was not. It's an ideological battle, and it was international. It was international. It was for different reasons, right? You have the anti-Semitic, like, things that were perpetuated in society. They go from generation to generation. That was established by the elites who wanted to get rid of those who would shout that the king is naked. Those are annoying people that should be eradicated. A very, very logical conclusion that was reached by many different rulers in different places. And if you don't understand that, then you can never, ever understand what the fight is about. Let me go through a little bit of super chat. Nitzade AP, I watch you from Israel. I really appreciate you and your work. You guys are great. It talks about AP as well. Saw your message on the protests. I wish there would be unity sometime. Amen to that. Thank you for your support. Shana, Britain and America were both philo-Semitic, especially after widespread literacy. My tradition only prays to God the Father. This was influenced by Judaism. Yeah, there is a lot, and surprise, surprise, when America stops believing in the values that makes it America, it becomes anti-Semitic. Surprise, that's what happens. Like, when and you have all forms of that, right? There are a lot of ways to stop believing in American values, like the slave owners in the South that were cutting out, like, they took off from, like, they ripped the passages from the Bible that didn't suit their agenda, for example. Like, they were like, let's just edit this out. When America stops believing in the principles that it was founded upon, that were very much based on the principles that are also in the Bible, then America starts ideologically opposing Judaism as well, and being more anti-Semitic. And now that, like, we have people, and then Obama is a hard, like, that's who he was. And those ideas, this education, right, it got into the American system in very many different ways. If it wasn't the specific Christian, how to say, like, a stream of Christianity that, like, the founders had, if it wasn't specifically that kind of Christianity, if it wasn't specifically that community, then maybe America would have never been what America is. But yeah, that's the reality. Andrea Savage, thank you for your support, by the way. Rebecca, Reb, what do you think of Daniela Weiss and the Expel Them movement and the B'Tselem NGO? I really don't think about them. I don't want to think about it. Like B'Tselem, like what can you do? Expel them? Daniela Weiss? I actually don't know what that movement is. Sorry, I'm uneducated. I need to go educate myself about different movements. I just, it's not my thing, to be honest. So, well, thank you for your donation.
Hatred. It's been around ever since Jews first emerged in antiquity. And it's taken different forms. And, we've had in the pre-modern period, Christian anti-Semitism. We've had racial anti-Semitism under the Nazis, and now we have the desire to eradicate from the world the collective Jew in Israel, and it's for those of us who live with this and who understand the dynamic. It's the same thing. But the question is why it is so omnipresent. Not omnipresent, why it is so, why it's so omnipresent, but also why it's so brazen. And that's because there's really no pushback. Because people are very, very, very reluctant to think that the Jews are unique. So even if people are troubled by what they perceive to be, a remarkable obsession with Israel, with Jews and so on, with very few exceptions, they're not prepared to stand up and say, this is a unique evil that has dogged the Jewish people forever, and we're seeing it now. It's unique, and we have to have a unique approach to it, and we have to protect the Jews. And they don't say that. They say, we're against all forms of prejudice. We're against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, it's one word. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Okay. Now, if you're against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, you cannot ever say there is a...
Shana Thurton. So I think, just my opinion, that when we lose the Bible and the Jewish values, we revert back to Greeks and Romans. It becomes, like you say, not thinking about purpose, but just features. That's if you're lucky. That's the lucky option. That's not that bad. There are way worse options. Like, this is when you go, like they... The truth about the Roman Greco society is that it was brutal. It was brutal. Women were slaves. Sorry, I got something. But that's not the worst. Like, that's not even the worst.
Major problem in the Muslim community of anti-Semitism. You can't say that because it's Islamophobic. So immediately you're paralyzed. And that's what we're living through. Anti-Semitism is coming at us from different constituencies. One constituency is the left. One constituency is the Muslim world. And one constituency is the people who are going along with this narrative because they think they are supporting the oppressed and the underprivileged of the world, either Palestinians, but actually, when they're marching alongside the people screaming and globalize the Intifada, which means murder Jews throughout the world, and in fact, not just murder Jews throughout the world, but rise up against the West everywhere, when they're screaming, when they're going alongside people screaming from the river to the sea, they're marching alongside people screaming for genocide. So I would call those, well-meaning, naive liberals who are not the left, and they're not the Muslim branch, but they are the branch of the Muslim world that is doing this. But they are people who are nevertheless lending themselves to this. So it's coming from three different constituencies.
Why are they doing that, Melanie? Because I went along to some of these protests and I spoke to people, and we have the video on our channel, millions.
Yeah, you guys, that was brutal. Ugh. All right. Yep. And now, okay, that's something that was released today. Sorry, you guys. Oh, that was awful.
I'm off the fence about Israel's war. Here's why. Exactly a year ago, when thousands of Hamas militants crossed Israel's border to engage in an orgy of medieval violence, I knew little about Israel and had no opinion about the long-running conflict there. I've never been to Israel. I've never been to Gaza. I've never been to the West Bank. It's not a conflict I studied at university or read about extensively. People on both sides who care passionately about this issue find it hard to believe, but in truth, most people are like this. That's why, for many months after the October 7th attacks, I avoided commenting on the war or even discussing it on our show. Instead, I read, watched, and listened to the endless commentary, debates, and discussions to understand what people on various sides were saying. Having gathered those perspectives, I then did my best to apply first principles thinking to the arguments I heard. Thinking from first principles means stripping whatever you're trying to analyze down to its core and working back from there. Context is extremely important to understanding. When it comes to highly emotive situations like this one, people often flood you with emotional context which does not support the argument they're actually making. There are some obvious examples in this debate which we will address shortly. First principles thinking helps you see the structure of arguments. The logic of an argument is like the skeleton of a body. You cannot see it from the outside, but it is usually the cause of why the body moves the way that it does. Getting to the skeleton of an argument is essential to understanding it. This was my approach when we had prominent pro-Palestine guests like Bassem Youssef and Norman Finkelstein on trigonometry, as well as pro-Israel guests like Ben Shapiro and Natasha Hausdorff. It was also my approach when I hosted a fiery debate on the subject at Dissident Dialogues, and when Safety Namus invited me to discuss this issue on this podcast. So what does first principle thinking tell us about the conflict? First, the easiest way to understand a complicated problem is to find a comparable situation about which you already know what to think. For example, if we accept that October 7th was a terrorist attack, as I believe most people do, the obvious approach would be to compare it to other terrorist attacks in recent history. That, as it happens, is impossible, because on a proportionate basis, the Western world has never experienced an attack on this scale. If we take 9/11, the most impactful terrorist attack in living memory, which shook the world's dominant superpower to its very core.
Crazy that they show that. Like, I had a video with a photo of 9/11, and I got, I got demonetized, and then when I asked for review, they approved the demonetization, so I re-uploaded the video without the image, and it was okay. But I think maybe because it was a photo like criticizing people who deny 9/11 or something, maybe that was it. And I wrote to them like, this is like as a criticism on somebody who denies it. It doesn't make sense. And then like they didn't care. Like somebody watched it, saw that it's like, look how I cannot believe like people think it's a conspiracy or whatever, and they still get demonetized.
We see that 2,977 people were
So I wonder if it's safe to show this image.
Killed in a country of 285 million people. On October 7th, approximately 1,200 people were killed in a country of just 9 million people. Some keep calling October 7th.
Yeah, I also think that one of the reasons that those who want to understand the truth actually start rethinking everything they used to believe, like it took a year. Like this person works. This is his work. and it took him a year. So I think the ordinary truth-seeking person might get it in like 2 years or so. If they're not already like religious, like, or Zionist, like from their course belief, right? Or somebody who was neutral, let's say, or somebody who like saw themselves as like on the liberal crowd, so they never, I don't know, whatever. So this person works at it. That's a video, I mean, but it took a year. Now, like, I have nothing, like, it took a year and he does it for work. Now that we're seeing that like a lot of people are now experiencing firsthand what the Jews and Israelis are experiencing with the protest and the way they are being lied. And like I see a lot of people, like a lot of them are like, wait, like I see this thought process of people are like, but they still don't get the full scale of it, but they're like, wait, if they lie about everything that is going on the streets of Britain, for example, or Ireland, and they report it as if somebody got attacked, but when they say somebody got attacked while we were protesting, the person that was attacking was actually an Islamist, and they reported without ever mentioning that. I was like, maybe this is what they do when they talk about Israel, you know? And I'm like, but then they don't understand the full scale of it yet, right? So it is a process of understanding of how much everything, absolutely everything, is a lie.
7th Israel's 9/11. That isn't remotely true. If October 7th was Israel 9/11, on a per capita basis, only 100 people would have been killed. In other words, October 7th was at least 12 times as bad as 9/11. And that's before accounting for the fact that Hamas took hundreds of hostages, many of whom have been killed since. So the obvious question is, if thousands of armed Mexicans had penetrated the southern border of the United States, killed 36,000 Americans, and dragged off thousands of hostages, how would America have reacted? Would there still be a Mexico to speak of? Whatever your view of the history of this conflict, I believe the logic of this is impenetrable. However, there are some persuasive arguments from the anti-Israel camp which are aimed at contextualizing October 7th. Let's look at them. Number 1, history did not start on October 7th. The crux of this argument, when broken down to its central premise, is that the state of Israel is illegitimate. In this conception, Israel was created because land belonging to Palestinians was taken by Western powers and given to European Jews fleeing the Holocaust. Palestinians were not consulted, did not give consent, and found themselves kicked out of their homes. Israel is a settler colonial state. 2. October 7th was a response to Israeli brutality and oppression. Those of you who watched my debate with Safety Amos will recall that he made this argument repeatedly. The people of Gaza and the West Bank are treated so badly, he argued, the response we saw on October 7th was totally understandable. An act of resistance aimed at redressing the wrongs they have suffered. 3. Israel is killing civilians. The scenes of parents pulling their children out of...
Like, what I like about it, that in this video that he made, he realized like that they lie so deeply, and like it's so reeking out of anti-Semitism, that even if you fully accept their narrative, it is messed up. You have to be actively and have anti-Semitic like principle beliefs to buy into that, if you think about it logically and actually have debate and everything like that. And also illogically, because these people at the same time ignore what is happening in Bangladesh, ignore what is happening anywhere else, like ignore Syria, and it's close, it's here, ignore what Hezbollah is doing, ignore Iran. So you, even if you are not being a rational person that uses logic, even if you use just emotion, your emotional system is wired in a way that your hatred to Jews would cause you to have an emotion.
Rubble speak for themselves. 4. Israel is engaged in indiscriminate attacks, which is why so many innocent people are dying.
Yeah, and then once you understand it, like that, the logical approach, the emotional approach, you have to be anti-Semitic to follow the narrative that the other side has. imagine like, and then this, and everything, absolutely everything is a lie. And even when they lie, they are still morally in the wrong. So those are all excuses. And this is why, this is what we are saying, that is the masks off, the mask drop, because I know these people, like I said, like the masks drop, like they would stop, they're gonna stop this all soon, because for example, my friend from Iran sent me a video where they say Hitler was right, it was the right thing to do to eliminate the Jews from Europe, right? It's like, oh, that's like, they are not even denying the Holocaust. Like they don't need to. They don't need to. They at some point, quite soon, and that's what's happening now. They don't even need the manipulation and the lies. They can just call for the annihilation of the Jews based on core anti-Semitic belief system, and that's it. Like, you know, that's it.
Dying. This argument aims to prove that Israel is the bad guy in this war because it is killing lots of people, either deliberately or due to a callous disregard for the lives of Palestinians. These are, to the best of my knowledge, the four principal arguments made by the anti-Israel side. If there are others, please let me know in the comments and I will address them in a follow-up video. Let's go through the arguments one by one. And for the sake of argument, let us accept that every point in each argument is valid and historically accurate. I know many viewers will find this objectionable, but I believe the best way to unpack this entire discussion is to take people's arguments as valid and see if they make sense. The first argument, whose central premise is that Israel is illegitimate, seems to be at the core of every debate. It feels reasonable and logical to many people to contextualize Israel's response to October 7th in this way. After all, if Israel was created through illegitimate means, it puts the discussion on an entirely different footing, doesn't it? Well, actually, no, it doesn't. Again, let's think from first principles. If we believe every pro-Palestinian claim and accept that Israel was created through the forced placement of European Jews in a foreign land by Western powers, we must look for a comparable situation in which a country was created through some form of displacement of the native population. Most of you live in such a country. The United States, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada are all the products of invasion, colonization, and brutal conquest. If you go back far enough, so is almost every other country in the world. Like it or not, Israel exists. It's home to over 9 million people. The idea that they would, could, or should accept the destruction of what is now their country is absurd. The United States government would not tolerate missile strikes and terrorist rampages from Native American reservations. Neither would any government of any country under any circumstances. Peace in the Middle East will not be achieved by attempting to undo many decades of history. The second argument centers on the idea that October 7th was a response to Israeli occupation and brutality. This, again, seems reasonable to many people. After all, what would it take for you to behave the way Hamas did on October 7th? The problem with this argument is that what happened on October 7th was not an attempt to weaken Israel militarily. It was not an attempt to break Hamas militants out of Israeli jails. It was not an attack on the Israeli Defense Force. It was not a prison breakout, as some people like to describe it, because when people break out of a prison, they don't normally head to the nearest town and start massacring women and children. October 7th was, by design and implementation, a terrorist attack whose purpose was to slaughter civilians, terrify Israeli society, and nothing else. This was not an act of resistance. It was an act of terrorism, which is why Israel had to react to it in the manner that it has, and why any other country would have done the same. The third argument is that Israel is killing civilians. This is the one claim made by the anti-Israel side that is undeniably true. However, this is an example of the emotive but irrelevant context I mentioned earlier. Civilians are always killed in war. The question is not whether they're being killed, but who bears responsibility for their deaths and who can stop the killing. Again, applying first principles thinking, we must reach for a comparable example. There is no exact equivalent that comes to mind, but there is some useful context we can consider. Hamas has repeatedly stated that given the opportunity, they will repeat the October 7th attacks again and again and again. While this may seem shocking to us in the West, it makes perfect sense given that Hamas believes Israel is illegitimate and would like to see it gone. This means that unless Israel destroys or degrades their ability to carry out their threats, it is likely to experience more terrorist attacks again and again. Does anyone seriously believe that any government of any country anywhere in the world would or could react to something like 12 9/11s in one day and the threat of more to follow as many times as possible with anything other than all-out war? And who can end the killing? Well, theoretically Israel could, of course, but for the reason we just discussed, they can't, won't, and shouldn't. That leaves Hamas, who could have returned the hostages and surrendered the people who took them. What is more, they could hide their civilians in the vast network of tunnels they've built to reduce casualties. Instead, they refuse to build bomb shelters and do everything they can to maximize civilian casualties. That's not my opinion, it's something Hamas are themselves proud of. A senior spokesman for the group, Sami Abu Zuhri, gave an interview on Palestinian station Al-Aqsa TV the last time this conflict flared up. The policy of people confronting Israeli warplanes with their bare chests in order to protect their homes has proven effective against the occupation, he said. We in Hamas call upon our people to adopt this policy.
You know, I'm reading your comments a bit, but I had this thought, you know, all those people who believe like there is a Jewish cabal and everything. Did you ever notice that wherever there is a imaginary Jewish cabal that is controlling the society, let's say the United States or Europe, because nobody thinks there is a Jewish cabal that controls Iran right now, right? Like Iran is liberated, Saudi is liberated, there are no Jews there. Like nobody thinks like, oh, those countries, like otherwise they wouldn't have sided. Like those people are like, yeah, Jews are evil, we have to side with Iran. If they believed that Iran was also controlled by a Jewish cabal, then they wouldn't have sided with Iran. So I always think like, did you ever notice that those countries that are supposedly run by Jewish cabal are the best countries? So maybe if you stop and think for a moment, you should be like saying that if there isn't a Jewish cabal in your country that is running everything behind the scenes, you should get it because it would be a better place.
In order to protect Palestinian.
Or, you know, everything that is good in your country. Yes, there is a Jewish cabal that controls everything in Europe and the borders, but everything that is good, it has nothing to do with the Jewish cabal, but everything that is bad has to do with the Jewish cabal. But at the same time, everything is bad wherever there is no Jewish cabal. So that's a very good observation, you know. That's why I feel like I made a video, but then I realized nobody cares about it. Like, logic and mathematics, like people should learn how to think mathematically and logically with math, because all you need to do is draw the statistics, right? You have the fact, okay, if wherever there is a conspiracy, where all those countries that are believed to be under the control of Jewish cabal tend to be a very good country to live in. All those countries that don't. And then you have this unexplainable claim that everything that is bad is because of the Jewish cabal, right? So why do places that are liberated from the Jewish cabal and are leading the fight against the Jewish cabal are the worst? You have to choose a claim that is false, right? So maybe the countries that you believe are the liberated ones are actually like, you know, once Hitler got in power because he had eradicated the Jews, or the ones like in Iran, maybe actually they are the ones that are really controlled by the Jewish cabal, and therefore you should stop supporting them. So if you really, really believe in the Jewish cabal and the Jewish cabal is responsible for everything bad, maybe actually Iran is the one that is controlled more fully by Jewish cabal, and that Hitler movement was the movement that was controlled by Jewish cabal. So therefore do not support this kind of movements that clearly they are the Jewish cabal. You know, something like one claim has to be false. This is how mathematics work. Like that's basic. And this is what happens when there is no education. People don't understand this. Like, write down 3 facts. Now let's see if those facts can exist together.
And homes. So yes, the deaths of civilians are tragic, and in a modern world where you can fill your social media feed with gruesome footage, that tragedy can be broadcast straight into your home 24/7. But the responsibility for their deaths is entirely with Hamas, and the failure to put a stop to the killing is theirs and theirs alone. Which brings us to the final argument. Israel's attacks are indiscriminate and designed to inflict civilian casualties. This is actually the simplest argument of the four to address because it is an empirical matter. The war in Gaza is not the first conflict in human history. We can compare the ratio of combatant to
Oh my God, I'm reading your comments, and the funny part is like, Jay, and I'm sorry, also the Nubis girl. You guys, I've been reading Jay. I just read your comment today, and I use it as an example. And also Noah, like the Nubis girl, like I've been like following your comments for some time. You are exactly the people that I thought that wouldn't understand it. Like, I'm sorry, Jay. I used you an example, and you said why people are really bad with reasoning, and like when you gave this thing, and it is consistent because even and you're like, now I didn't get you. I was like, yeah, I know, because like we talked about it before. You threw a fact that only a person that would not understand the reasoning that I just lay down, like write down 3 facts and understand that one of them has to be false in order for your theory to work, is something that, that some people just are not so good at it, because some people are not mathematicians, whatever, As I can say, okay, if you cannot do that, then do not involve don't give statements with a point, only with a question mark. When you talk to people that you think you can trust emotionally, trust your instinct in that case. I think, worst case scenario, you're gonna be on the hits list, but it's funny. I'm sorry. It's and then I see others that I know have a more logical thinking from the interactions that I've seen. They're like, yeah, I get it. And it's like, I understood 100%, and but the thing is, from the comments, I was like, it's so incredible to me that it in my mind is like those who said they didn't get it, and those who said who get it. It is really consistent with the way they write comments. Sorry, you guys, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything. Okay, not everybody has to be a mathematician. Okay. But it's just a thing, right? When you do those kind of things, this is why, for example, I had to go through days and days and days of testing to get accepted to the job I did in the IDF, in the intelligence. Most people just do not it's rare to get accepted to this unit. It's not everybody's can get accepted. It's like their warp. I was initially rooms filled with hundreds of people. A lot of people I thought were super smart that went to the exams with me didn't pass. I was like, no offense for it's okay. It's okay. And at the same time, I can tell you that there are a lot of things that I'm not good with. I'm not good at. I cannot do. I literally cannot do. People can be great with graphic design. I cannot be. I just don't get it. I don't get graphic. To me, it's I don't get it. I don't understand it. I fundamentally do not. But others do, But it's just for my skill set, what I'm doing is something I gravitate towards, let's say.
Civilian deaths in this war to others. What happens when we do? Historically, urban warfare operations result in a casualty ratio of 9 civilians for every 1 enemy fighter killed. In Gaza, it is 2 to 1. In other words, despite the deliberate attempts by Hamas to increase the number of civilian casualties, Israel has been extraordinarily successful in reducing them. This doesn't mean that there won't be incidents in which innocent Palestinians are killed, and, as in any war, there will likely be war crimes committed by both sides. But overall, the numbers don't lie. If you need further evidence that claims of Israel's indiscriminate attacks are nonsense, just look at the way various commentators reacted to what has been dubbed Operation Grim Reaper. Thousands of Hezbollah pages were rigged with explosives and then detonated simultaneously, killing and injuring thousands of terrorists and a small number of bystanders. The pages in question were not picked at random. Israel specifically selected a batch of senior Hezbollah operatives. And still, people like Humza Yousaf, Scotland's former First Minister, complain about Israel's indiscriminate attacks. This was definitionally the most precise, targeted and surgical large-scale anti-terrorist operation in human history. In summary, I've engaged with an open mind and in good faith with all the anti-Israel arguments presented to me over the last year. On balance, I regard them as disingenuous, irrelevant, and designed to pull at my heartstrings in order to obscure the harsh reality of this conflict. We would respond exactly the way that Israel has. The only difference is we would do so with the support of every member of the international community, while Israel has to fight not only the terrorists who want to wipe them off the map, but Western apologists for those terrorists as well. If you enjoy these videos, you should know that they're available on my site.
Yes, perfect. All right. Actually, so here is like the geopolitical analysis of like, here's how they called it, how the Islamic ideology was reflected in the attack by Hamas, and they bring up Quran verses that show you at what point exactly what are the signs that you have to attack. So some of them are when they're divided, when they're fighting among themselves, when they are building fences around themselves instead of coming to your communities and getting rid of the criminals, so to say. So when they build fences, when they're fighting, and when they're like leaving land, when they're receding. So Israel had done this, right? They built a fence around Gaza, and then with the protests. So this is when the Quran promises that this is the time that Allah will be with you. Worked perfectly with the Crusaders. Did it work perfectly now? Depends. I mean, this is why we have to win. If we don't win this war, like they would take it as a win and that Allah was with them. If we win it completely and they followed everything that the Quran said, like followed it, right? All the things like, okay, so Israel built fences, left like they left land, right? The fact that Israel had uprooted Jewish communities, this is also written in the Quran, right? So those three things, this is when Muslims, and the last thing that happened in the last year, for the first time, you had those crazy protests, right? Like not including the Oslo things that when the Oslo thing happened, they weren't as well organized yet, right? So they had intifada because that's what they could do, but they didn't have an army yet. And now they have an army, so they are ready. They have the protest again. So this is the time that you can attack and collapse in the society completely. So this is the calculation they did. Unless Israel gets rid of them 100%, they're gonna believe it's true. And this is something that should be scary to everybody, right? I think, because you're starting to get your own ghettoed communities. And when people who are starting to sell out their homes because they suddenly live in a mostly Muslim community, and when that Muslim community is gonna start getting more and there are gonna be more and more cities that are gated, when those things happen, you're gonna get your October 7th, unless of course Israel does that, and then it's like, wait, maybe the Quran is wrong here. Just saying. So that analysis is incredible, and it's interesting to hear those perspectives. Like this guy, for example, he's Druze. So every person they're of course talking they interrupt each other, talk on top with each other, like those things that people really like complaining about that I do. Should really start watching how Israelis interact. Like there is no way they could talk like without them getting into each other. But yeah, which is interesting. So there is a lot, because people are like, for example, he is in touch with the Druze community in Lebanon and Syria, and then he knows more about what's going on there because he gets to hear it from people there and stuff like that. So it's really cool to hear their perspectives. Anyway, So I heard this part of the analysis and I was like, wow, I should share it with you all. So this is that's like, those are the three, like Israel did that, and like this is time Allah bless them. We're fighting against Allah. What can we do? That's the what we have learned from October 7th, those who bothered. This is an ideological fight. This is a fundamental fight. There is a reason they say it's how to say, it's like an existential, the West, it's civilization versus no civilization, because it is true. It is true, you know. That is exactly what is the fight is about. It's just the way it is. Right, let me see, go through comments a little bit, and then I'm gonna go to sleep. All right, you guys, let me see anything. Just wait 5 minutes and then I'm gonna disappear, and then you're gonna complain, oh, you just leave so fast out of the blue. Yeah, that's life. But I'm giving you a moment. Maybe my inner clock thinks that like 10 seconds is like 5 minutes, and I'm being very generous. But you know, yeah, it's late. All right, you guys. Happy New Year. And honestly, those couple of videos that I showed, like those things, gives me hope. It gives me hope, because it's hard to believe, right? It's hard to believe like how fundamental the lies are. Like everything, it's like the whole everything from the ground up, lies. And people are getting it now, and I honestly cannot tell you how emotional I felt when I watched it. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen it before. I don't think I've ever seen it before. That's the first time. And so may it be, it was an awful attack, and may it be a good year. Good night, everybody. And yes, and subscribe, join Patreon, like, comment, share my content with people. I'm gonna not post content because I'm working on something that takes a bit more time, which probably in the end only if you're gonna watch anyway. But like I'm hopeful. So you guys, please share my content. It helps a lot. Patreon, coffee, join Discord. Your support matters. It really does, because it's a lot of work. So please help me grow. All right, you guys.